Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded except for Texas winds and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activities, and we are proud to see Peggy Spear coming to us from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art, bringing us art that depicts snow. Peggy, take it away.
Feel the quietness of this woodblock. I think the footprints you can almost hear. Have you ever taken on a quiet, alone walk on a snowy day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not in Texas, but yes, I have.
Somewhere else in your life that's not here. You can hear that crunch. I feel like you can hear that quiet crunch.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the blankets, like Yetta pointed out, of the snow that's layered. This is like a hill. The artist is from Pennsylvania and was very inspired by his family, the nature, the farm he grew up on and lived on. So that was often where he was pulling from. We don't know exactly if this is where he lived, but based on his work, many art historians suspect this is someplace he knew or lived or was.
It's got snow on the fences too.
Yeah, snow on the fences.
Ooh, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can see a house, possibly two homes.
Yeah,
off in the
Really?
distance.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And then this snowy hill that just builds up where it almost it kisses the sky. And then you hear, and you can see those birds. And again, I feel everything about this just feels very visceral. You know that walk where you
Ooh, bless you.
God bless you. Where you know, you're not alone because the birds are overhead, but it's quiet. You're not interacting in any way, but you're out there convening in nature together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks a little solitary and sad because the feature, the human form looks like it is moving away because of the footprints. And it looks
Looks like it also has a cane or a walking stick.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Good view. It looks solitary and kind of sad to me.
And maybe
Kind of get over a little bit.
Because you can see the little points of the walking stick along there too.
You can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good eye.
So a little break.
Yetta goes first and then Yetta first and then Don. Yetta, you go ahead.
There's a little bridge in the scene as well.
Yes, good eye.
Yeah, there is. Yes.
And Don, what did you know?
Very detailed. Actually, there's another bridge up there too, along on the hillside right there. Yeah.
That's the one on the hillside that I saw.
Yeah, but there's another one underneath the trees
Ah,
there.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, since this is a wood cut, was it printed using black ink on white paper or how was it made?
It's white wove paper. It's black ink.
Black ink. Okay.
Yeah, you can tell by the edging of this is where that wood block would have ended.
Yeah.
The black line, and then there's white. You can barely see it, but there's white on the sheet of paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this artist, Pennsylvania born, and then eventually moved back, or Pennsylvania, then went to Philadelphia for art school. He painted for a while and felt that he had almost been over-taught how to paint. And so he was a good painter, but it wasn't what he felt was his best creative outlet. So he turned to woodcut. He met a female author who was worked in this medium and ended up trying it in the early 1920s. And between 1920 and 1930, made over 380 woodcuts.
Wow.
He ended up really loving this medium and was really good at it. And his winter scenes particularly were very appealing to people because of all of the things you're talking about. You feel very you're able to experience the senses of as if you would on a snowy day.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to, I just, something else just dawned on me. Everything that's black, everything that's white is actually where the cuts were.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's very detailed.
Yes,
There-
it is.
yeah. Yeah, he was really good. I mean, you're really only using lines. He was really good at creating variety in line to create different moods, and he does that very well. And this is even early in his beginning with this medium.
Another name for it is a relief cut.
Relief cut, yes.
Relief cut, yeah.
So Peggy, do these do the original wood cut blocks still exist for
I
some
don't
of
know.
these
We
things?
don't have the wood cuts, the wood blocks in our possession, so I don't know where they are, if they exist. These weren't done on metal, so oftentimes wood blocks, and I don't know what his practice was, but wood blocks would be either, you know, shaved down and repurposed or just striped through so no one can replicate. So I don't know what happened to his wood blocks.
I mean, I don't know what this was used for. Was it used for commercial release?
So
Or?
this particular one was used in a magazine called The Century. It was a monthly magazine, and it was this monthly magazine had journalism, literature, poetry, graphic art, this kind of thing. So this particular one appeared in a circulated publication. All right, so I feel like this is a very moody print. And this particular one, it's got good size. It's 11 by 9, I think I wrote, or 11 by 7. So it's pretty good.
Wow.
This next one, our good friend Elliott Porter. And so, you know, there isn't much written about this particular artwork. Gosh, he's taken so many photographs. I don't think something can be written about every single one of his artworks, but this is just so classically Elliott Porter. And knowing we've seen so many Elliott Porter photographs in the past, I know, Martha, you're a big fan of his. Is there anything that kind of jumps out as you as it being an Elliott Porter?
Susan Angelo. Services.
I'm sorry, the color.
The color, yeah,
Yes.
very saturated. Is someone at Martha's house?
No.
It sounded like someone going, "Hi, Martha."
No.
That was one of the nurses going down the hall.
Oh, okay.
Dusty's the one with the weird sound. The color just jumped out at me, and of course I
Yeah.
went straight up, and yeah, of course it's Elliott Porter.
Yeah.
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 I mean, the color of the water, even though it's colored blue, I mean, that just means that it gives it the feel that it's the ice is just melted. And I don't know if that's a false color or how she created that color.
Elliott Porter, though, his printing or his development process that is what allowed him to create these extremely saturated colors.
Okay.
So that's kind of like Martha was speaking to. His colors are usually very dense, very rich colors in his photographs, and that's just the printing process he uses. So this blue, it looks like it's a frozen lake because there's that powder of, you know, the dusting that's rested on the ice. But like the other woodcut we just looked at, I feel like you can feel the puffiness of the snow. Like if you were to be walking up to that, you know exactly that feeling of trudging in fresh powder. And I feel because of how puffy and how it just feels like you know exactly what that snow would feel like if you were to walk on it. And so this is taken in upstate New York.
I can hear the crunch.
Yeah, you can hear the crunch. And like that, to me, this looks like a champagne snow, that like real powdery snow. I don't know. It could be the kind that kind of has the sheet of ice on the top where you can hear that crunch coming through.
Yeah.
But you know, like if you are going snowshoeing or just out on a winter hike, this is such a, and especially alone, you get the sense that this is just a quiet moment the artist is having,
Mhm.
because we don't see any footprints. We're not focusing on everything else around us. It's almost immediately what you would be seeing if you were walking on this path alone.
Even snow, if it doesn't have to be powder, it doesn't have to be ice crunch. If it's packed snow, you still hear the sound
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
on it. Yeah.
And that feeling of lifting your foot out of the fresh powdered snow, you know, that trailblaze feeling of you really got to lift your foot up to keep that fresh powder
Like
from
walking
slowing
in
you down.
water.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I can even kind of imagine the sound of the brook as it's going under the snow.
Ooh.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like because you can see those branches and like underbrush and things like that, you know that sound too of like when snow kind of cracks the branch, or that you can hear that like
Yeah.
very distinct snap of a branch when you're out in the woods, and it's so quiet because of the snow.
It almost looks like a brook that's underground, comes above ground, and goes to underground again.
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise you wouldn't have the snow all over.
That's right.
Right.
That's
top of,
right.
you know.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. And you can imagine how beautiful it would be in the summer too.
Oh, yeah.
True. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I may have walked over a couple creeks like this when I was young.
Yeah.
Stamping in
You
the
were home
snow.
by dinner. You disappeared.
Yeah, be
in-
home by dinner. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it started getting dark, you knew you had to go home.
That's the way we lived.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No cell phones.
Mhm.
And just hoping a sibling would be able to get to your mom in time if something really bad happened.
I understand. I remember one time in North Dakota had a huge blizzard. Of course, it wasn't blizzarding at that point in time, but the snow was so high. Basically, a couple of friends and I walked out to the store to get groceries, for our neighbors. And it was up above the roofs, the eaves. We're walking on top of cars and other things. So deep.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember once when I was a child, when I was much smaller, the snow drifts seemed like they were much larger.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yes.
And I was able to dig a little cave out that I could get in and hide. My mother
Yeah.
was so upset with me. She said, that could have collapsed on you. We'd never find you till spring.
You need like
Yeah,
a little
I've heard this story all the time.
avalanche.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Heard that story all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But somehow we made it out alive, guys.
That's
We
right.
did.
That's
We
right.
did.
survived.
Sometimes we did because we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. We're the generation of those who drink water out of a hose and cars
That's right.
without seat belts and
Had lead
all
paint on
sorts
the
of things, yeah.
windshields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right in the back of the truck.
That's right.
Yes.
Eat raw eggs.
Ooh.
Yes.
Raw eggs. That's right.
Yeah. Isn't it funny when you think of some of those things now and you're like, oh my God, like what were we thinking? Smoking in bars was a big one I can think of, like in recent history, where in college and graduate school, everyone smoked in bars. And now, could you imagine someone smoking at the table went over from you? It would be wild. Or on the airplane, it would be nuts.
Well, the tobacco industry had its hands on just about everything, even promoting that smoking was good for you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
At one point.
4 out of 5 doctors.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 doctors. That's exactly right, Martha. That's how they presented it.
Uh-huh.
5. All right. Well, we're leaving this peaceful Adirondack brook to go to a kind of hectic feeling scene, an American farm scene. It's a lithograph.
Courier knives.
Courier knives. Yep, exactly. So this is a totally different feel. I mean, like here you feel the quietness and the ability to just kind of contemplate nature. Here it's like living in what this environment looks like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do we see going on?
Looks like a farm where they're taking probably freshly milked cow milk somewhere.
So in the front, this 2-horse carriage or sleigh has
Right, yeah.
cans of milk.
Mhm.
We've got some ice skating.
Ice skating,
happening.
yes.
Mhm.
You don't
You
have
got
to
it.
worry about it spoiling.
Say that again, Dusty?
Said they don't have to worry about it spoiling.
It almost looks, I'm looking at the barn. The guy's holding up, I think, a chicken or something.
A turkey.
Yeah, he's holding up
A
something there,
turkey.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's pluming, what is it called? Pluming a turkey?
yeah,
Plucking a turkey?
Plucking, yes.
whatever. Yeah, plucking. Yeah.
Yeah, because it looks like he's about to meet his maker right at this cauldron.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I'm trying to remember. We had another photo of a similar scene, but it wasn't wintertime. And it looked very similar to this.
Yes.
Buildings and everything looked very similar.
That's a good memory. It was like another farm scene and there was a dog and there were
Yeah,
chickens.
yes,
Yep.
yes, yeah.
I don't think it was Fanny Palmer, but I could be wrong. Yeah, and it's that just really was a very the topic that sold at Courier
Mhm,
Knives
mhm.
are these big city,
Yeah.
city, Philly, Boston, New York, wanting to know what that rural life looked like. And so domestic scenes of, on the farm life, that really appealed to the American public on the East Coast.
Mhm.
So it was often a topic that came up and was drawn over and again. And Fanny Palmer, we've seen some of her prints before. She was one of the few artists, let alone women, that were on staff at Courier Knives. Everybody else was typically contracted out, but she was, for about 25 years, she was on staff and was well known in her day as a artist. And she moved from England with her husband, settled in New York City, opened up their own printing company. And then Nathaniel Courier, she got on his radar and he ended up buying them out and then bringing her on staff.
Wow.
So she was very well known. She was a wonderful artist, and these scenes people just ate up.
I have a little comment.
Hmm.
When I was a child, my mother said she loved Courier Knives, and I didn't understand it. But I thought that Courier Knives were two artists and that they did all of these.
Oh, mhm.
But you're telling me now that they were a company that had people to do
Mhm.
things like this
Yes,
with
yes.
their name on it.
Yes.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's a whole new thing for me.
Yeah.
So,
So we saw Courier and Ives print around Christmas, the sleigh one, where it
Yeah.
was Courier and his wife. That was
Yeah.
made by another artist as a gift for him. But then he liked it so much, then he ended up opening it up and selling it himself through his publication. They were the publication company, essentially. And so they staffed the artist, so then, Fanny would create this scene and there would be somebody else on staff who would then go in and paint it.
okay. Okay.
That
Yeah,
opens
this-
up my world.
Basically, the sleigh and the horses probably do not belong to this farm
Well, it's hard to say. You're right.
Yeah, it's hard
because
to
it
say.
looks like they're going past the farm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's funny. I see it as they're hooking around the lake to get to that barn.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
Could be.
we have no idea.
Yeah.
And
No.
probably, all honesty, this is something she made up. Who knows if it's probably
Yeah.
a real farm.
Yeah.
Fanny was working in New York City, so she wasn't out in the rural parts of the country. So this is probably completely fabricated.
Well, that's a good point, though, that the milk was distributed through a dairy products
Mhm.
company, probably. Sometimes the farmer himself would distribute.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So,
Could have been his delivery route.
because the delivery route, absolutely right.
That's
Pretty-
pretty big. Those are pretty big cans of milk.
Yeah, they are.
And so it's almost like it'd be going to a creamery or a dairy
Yeah.
because of the amount of milk there,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just a delivery, to a farm or house. Something.
Looks like they have real fur blankets on there.
Doesn't
Yep,
that just look
robes.
so
Yeah.
delightful?
Well, there are two people sitting there. So one, I don't know if that's a woman next to him or a child.
I think it's a child, a young boy.
Okay.
I like this. This is a nice,
Yeah, this is a nice one. Yeah.
nice one.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about milkmen, and I remember that there were still milkmen in my neighborhood in the 70s.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can remember them from the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I lived in Denver for a while and they had milk delivery while I was there. So
You
I
know,
don't
they,
know if it's as thriving as it once was, but people can still get milk dropped off in glass bottles on their porch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and when I was a child, it was a milkman. He had horses, and
Mhm.
and that was carrying
Wow.
the wagon with the milk and
Mhm,
Yeah.
ice, all of that.
mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
in
Yeah.
Thailand, they had milk delivery, you know,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't trust the milk. I'm sorry. Because they were in ice coolers and you never knew how long they'd been in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Or they probably weren't pasteurized.
Yeah. Now I guess the modern equivalent is the water delivery.
That's probably true.
Oh. Mhm. I have a
And-
question about in the middle of the picture where the
Mhm.
lady is at the well.
Yes.
Mhm.
It looks to me like there is a white line going up from the well to the house and
Mhm.
around. Is it catching roof water?
It looks to be.
Yes, it does.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Thank
To me,
you.
this feels like a very New Englandy house,
It does.
It does,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes.
which I'm
That's-
sure she had exposure to at some point. This doesn't to me feel like the Midwest. It feels very New England to me.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
A salt box style house.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And so I'm sure they were no stranger to figuring out how can we get that snow melt and use it.
Hmm.
All right. So we're leaving this domestic scene. I'm going to another, not domestic
Yeah.
scene, but another scene of people convening in nature. And this does not feel as peaceful as the last one we just saw.
Hmm.
Even though it probably is, I think it's this because of the way the photograph has the movement of the snowflakes. It gives it more of a more things are moving versus the stillness of the man walking in the snow like we saw in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
That's
is
a
a good one.
photograph.
too.
This is a photograph.
Photograph. Yeah.
This
Wow.
was taken in, well, it was sold in Denver, Colorado. So I'm assuming the photograph was taken somewhere in the Rockies. And then
Yeah.
through that printer in Denver was then the vendor.
Mhm.
I couldn't find anything about the artist. This was just might have been a photograph that ended up in Denver.
Yeah. Well, I have a question I always thought about these old prints.
Mhm.
When you taking a picture in freezing conditions, I don't know. I didn't know if they had to keep the plates warm somehow, or if the chemical interaction worked no matter what temperature it was.
Yeah, I don't know enough. I mean, gelatin silver print is a practice that was still used today. I mean, if you see black and white, it's almost always gelatin silver. So this practice, I'm sure refined over time, but I think it was one of the maybe less work intensive. I
Okay.
think you can develop it back at the in a studio versus having to do all that agitating out
Okay.
on the
That
animal.
makes sense.
But I'm sure they weren't the lightest cameras. I'm sure they were still very fragile. And so, I mean, imagine keeping all of that safe enough on a donkey or a horse.
Yeah.
In the snow, in the mountains. But
Strong
there's
horse.
something, oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Strong horse.
Yeah. I mean, even though they're on horses and, in the woods, there's something though about the demeanor of the man on the horse that felt like, I'm sure you can think of home photographs you have growing up of something your mom snapped of you as a child and in the winter, and you're just, you're all bundled up. There's not much you can really do. And you're just, here I am in the snow. There just seems like that humanness in this photograph that is relatable to anybody who's taken a picture in the snow.
He kind of looks like he's happy.
Yeah, doesn't he? He has a
Mhm.
little bit of a smile to him.
gelatin silver basically was an improvement. When they did the wet plate process, they had to expose it immediately. And so the gelatin silver basically allowed them to have the plates coated
Yes.
and then store them
Yeah,
and then expose them.
okay,
They could have them like in a storage container box or something like that, have them all ready to go. Just pull it out and stick it in and expose it.
And so Denver is where these pictures were then being developed. All right, well, those are our, I think that's it. Yeah, those are our snowy images for today. We won't be seeing any types of snow like that, but stay warm out there. And then next week we are looking at images of the rodeo because it is rodeo time. And
that's right, stock show.
Rodeos.
yeah, we are directly across the street from the stock show. So we are living the rodeo every single day over here. So
All right.
all right,
Well,
friends, be good. I'll see y'all
bye.
next week.
All right,
I gotta
bye-bye.
go.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Peggy.
Bye,
Peggy.
friends.